Queen Elizabeth II, Platinum Jubilee by Squad Presley.
The birth of Queen Elizabeth II. Princess Elizabeth Alexandra Mary was born on the 21st of April 1926. She was born in Mayfair, London at 2:40 a.m. When Elizabeth was born, it was not expected that she would become queen. Her uncle, King Edward VIII, was king, but abdicated when he married an American actress named Wallis Simpson.
Elizabeth II's childhood. Princess Elizabeth and her younger sister Margaret were raised in a large house in London. They never attended school but got a good education from a home tutor. Elizabeth's life changed when her father became King George VI. After the abdication of her uncle King Edward VIII, the family then moved to Buckingham Palace.
Contribution during World War II. 19-year-old Elizabeth joined the Women's Auxiliary Service after a 6-week training course as an auto mechanic. Elizabeth learned to deconstruct, repair, and rebuild engines, change tires, and drive lots of different vehicles. Elizabeth was nicknamed the Princess Auto Mechanic, and when Germany surrendered on the 8th of May 1945, she and her sister Margaret famously slipped out of Buckingham Palace to celebrate with Londoners.
Marriage to Prince Philip. The future Queen Elizabeth married Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, on the 20th of November 1947 at Westminster Abbey. 2,000 guests were invited to the wedding, including 6 kings and 7 queens. 200 million people around the world watched the wedding ceremony. The couple went on to have 4 children together: Prince Charles, Prince Anne, Prince Edward, and Prince Andrew.
Death of King George VI. On the 6th of February 1952, the then Princess Elizabeth found out her father, King George VI, had passed away due to lung cancer. At the time, she was staying at the Treetops Hotel in Kenya. It was said that she climbed up a tree as a princess and came down as a queen.
The coronation. Elizabeth II acceded to the throne at the age of 25, but was 27 at the time of the coronation, which was 16 months after her father's death. Elizabeth's coronation took place on the 2nd of June 1953 at Westminster Abbey in London. The delay to the Queen's coronation was due to the royal tradition of delaying holding festivals during the period of mourning for the previous monarch. During the service, Elizabeth took an oath and was anointed with holy oil.
Thank you for listening.
On the 29th of May 1953, 33-year-old New Zealander Edmund Hillary and 39-year-old Sherpa, a Himalayan mountain guide, Tenzing Norgay, were the first recorded people to reach the peak of Mount Everest. Trekking for 7 weeks, they climbed 29,035 feet above sea level, with their final obstacle being the 40-foot rock face now called Hillary Step. They finally reached the peak at 11:30 a.m. on the 29th of May.
The night before their ascent, the temperature was minus 34 degrees Celsius with hurricane-force winds. On the 2nd of June, the day of Queen Elizabeth's second coronation, news of their achievement broke around the world. Later, in 1953, Edmund Hillary and the expedition leader, Colonel John Hunt, were knighted by the Queen. As Tenzing Norgay was not a Commonwealth national, he received a lesser British Empire medal for his success.
70 years ago, on the 28th of February 1953, Francis Crick walked into the Eagle pub in Cambridge, UK, and announced something for which he would later share a Nobel Prize.
We have found a secret to life. His collaboration and subsequent fellow Nobel lecturer James Watson later quoted him saying the pair really had figured out something very close to that. Working out the famous double helix structure of the DNA was an achievement which led to countless advancements and solved a mystery which had troubled scientists for decades.
The Great Smoke of London happened when too much gases went into the air. The gases had harmful chemicals and made a layer of smoke. People had to wear masks to go outside. People were hospitalised because of this. A law was put in place to stop the smoke, and it got better. No one was allowed to put a big amount of harmful gases into the air. The smoke disappeared and so did the masks, but unfortunately a pandemic hit in 2020 and the masks were brought back to London.
It was 1963. The Beatles, also known as the Fab Four, released their first #1 album called Please Please Me.
This album topped the charts for the total of 30 weeks.
The album had several famous songs in it, including Twist and Shout, I Saw Her Standing There, Do You Want to Know a Secret, and Love Me Do.
Please Please Me was voted the 39th best album in the Rolling Stones list of greatest albums.
Good afternoon, this is Baxter News. Edna Winchester and Snazzy Jazzy speaking. It's currently 1967 and we have some news.
Breaking news!
Who has newly announced Criminal Justice Act 1967. Capital punishment has been abolished for murder. This has been Snazzy Jazzy and Edna Winchester. Thanks for tuning in.
In 1969 was the year of Prince Charles's investiture as the Prince of Wales. This title is given to the monarch's oldest child. At this ceremony, the Queen bestowed 5 insignia to Charles: a sword, coronet, ring, a gold rod, and the kingly mantle.
I, Charles, Prince of Wales, do become your liege man of life and limb. Out of earthly worship and faith in truth, I will bear unto thee to live and die against all manners of folks.
Queen events in 1971 to 1975.
In 1971, decimal currency was introduced. United Kingdom and Ireland started using decimal coins. This was due to February being a quiet month for balancing businesses.
Go.
Until 1971, providing the official portrait of Her Majesty, which was sent to every British embassy throughout the world. In 1972, it was Queen's wedding anniversary. Queen Elizabeth celebrated her silver wedding anniversary in October 1972, celebrated in Balmoral Castle grounds.
In 1973, the Silver Jubilee of the Queen Elizabeth II marked the 25th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's occasion to the thrones of the United Kingdom and the other Commonwealth realms.
1974, miners' strike brings down health government and Harold Wilson returns as Prime Minister. Restrictions on the use of electricity had a huge impact across the country. TV stations shut down at 10:30 p.m. and businesses could only operate on specific days and for limited hours. The general election on 28th of February resulted in a hung parliament and he formed a minority government.
In 1975, Queen's Christmas broadcast, Queen hosted a concert at London's Hammersmith Odeon and has become one of the legendary events in the Queen's history.
Over the 70 years of Queen Elizabeth's reign, she has travelled all over the world. in particular to some of the 53 sovereign states that make up the Commonwealth nations.
The Queen used the Concorde from 1973 to 2003. She travelled all over the world using the Concorde aircraft to places like Barbados, Middle East and the United States.
Concorde was a supersonic passenger-carrying commercial airplane. It began flying across the world on the 2nd of March 1969.
The super speed plane is so fast that it takes 2 hours and 52 minutes to get to New York from London. That's just 8 minutes longer than it takes me to go to Aberdeen from Portsmouth on the bus.
The Concorde aircraft flew in formation with the Royal Air Force Red Arrows display team on 4th of June 2002 to celebrate the Queen's Golden Jubilee.
For our Jubilee Squad Challenge, Scott Newton found out all about Concorde and the link to Her Majesty the Queen. We even built a model Concorde plane.
Margaret Hilda Thatcher was born on the 13th of October 1925 above a greengrocer's owned by her father. From these humble beginnings she rose to be the first woman Prime Minister, famous for her tough and combative style.
This lady is not for turning.
Despite losing her first 2 elections, she rose to be the Conservative Party leader from 1975 to 1990.
You may have to fight a battle more than once to win it.
She was determined to modernise Britain through her conservative political views. She was very powerful and showed this through the destruction of the mining industry.
Being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, you aren't.
Known as a tough leader, her nickname was the Iron Lady. She dominated a cabinet full of men and famously didn't allow them to use the toilet in case they plotted against her.
Thatcher was removed from power by her own MPs, and although the Queen never publicly spoke on Thatcher, she was said to admire her and attended her funeral.
I am extremely patient, providing I get my own way in the end.
His Royal Highness, Prince of Wales and Lady Diana Spencer were married at St Paul's Cathedral on Wednesday 29th of July 1981. The marriage was widely known as a fairy tale wedding and the wedding of the century. There were over 3,500 guests that attended the church and around 750 million, including our squad leader Lucy, who is aged 9 at the time, watching from home.
Princess Diana's dress included a 25 feet long train and 450 feet of tulle was used for her dress and veil. She was the first royal bride in over 300 years to be married without a royal title. Diana had a gold horseshoe sewn into her gown for good luck, and both hers and Prince Charles's initials were embroidered onto her shoes. There were 27 wedding cakes made for the wedding, and a slice of one of the cakes sold in 2014.
After the ceremony, the couple made their traditional appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, and the whole country had a national holiday on the day to mark the wedding. There were celebrations around the world, including street parties, and there were thousands of people lining the streets of London to get a glimpse of the bride. It was a huge historical occasion that is a significant milestone in the Queen's reign.
December 21st, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 departed London Heathrow at 7 p.m. towards New York City, with 259 passengers and crew on board.
40 minutes into the flight, the plane exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland. A bomb was hidden in the cassette player of the aircraft.
Everyone on board and 11 Scots on the ground were killed.
The explosion created debris over 845 square miles. This was the largest crime scene ever.
There were upwards of 5,000 responders. This includes the FBI and Scottish authorities.
Although one person was convicted of this atrocity, the investigation is still ongoing 34 years later.
May 1994. The Queen opened the Channel Tunnel and the UK was no longer an island. On 6th of May, the Queen and the President of France shook hands in the Channel Tunnel.
The digging was done by used tunnel boring machines, known as a TBMS, which cut through the chalk and collected the debris and transported it behind using conveyor belts. The length of the tunnel, 50 kilometres, opened in 1994. Construction started in 1988. Construction cost $21 billion to make. This is Banff Academy News. News just in that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in a car crash. The crash happened at 23 minutes past midnight tonight, 31st of August 1997, at the Pont de la Lamba, a tunnel in Paris. Others who died in the crash are Henry Paul, the driver, and Dodi Fayed, the princess's companion. Another passenger, a bodyguard, who has been seriously injured. It is believed Henry Paul, the driver, lost control of the car, which is travelling at high speed. We do know that the car is being pursued by members of paparazzi, the press-packed photographers who habitually follow Princess Diana. It seems that the chase contributed to the crash. The death of Diana, Princess of Wales, is undoubtedly going to cause massive repercussion in this country and the world as a whole. throughout her marriage to Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales and future king, and also her divorce. Princess Diana devoted much of her time to charity work, bringing her own very personal style to the role, showing spontaneous compassion and kindness, particularly to AIDS victims and sick children. It has been said that she brought human warmth and empathy to whatever she did, which made the royal family look rather stiff and distant in comparison. The public are showing their grief and sorrow by leaving flowers at the site of the accident. No doubt her death would be the subject of much soul-searching by the media and establishment.
In 1997, Labour was voted to power for the first time in 18 years. In their manifesto, there was a promise for a referendum vote on a parliament in Scotland with tax-varying powers and assembly in Wales. These votes would be take place September 1997. The people of Scotland and Wales were asked a statement they agreed with. I believe Scotland should have a parliament and Wales it was an assembly, or I do not believe Scotland should have a parliament, again, Wales it was an assembly. A second question was asked in Scotland if they believed the Parliament should have tax-varying powers. There were many agreements for and against. For example, arguments in favour included devolution makes it impossible for decisions to be taken at a more appropriate level. For example, the problems of agriculture are different in Scotland to England. Also, the economic problems of the Welsh valleys are special to that area. Devolution allows the cultural identity and national feeling in each part of the UK to find expression. Scotland has a different legal system, a different established church, and a different education system to England. Devolution allows for different policies to develop in different parts of the UK and for invitations to occur. A lot of people were against Wales having their own assembly. One of the reasons was the fear that it would break up the UK, and another reason was that it would not be good for businesses, as there would be a barrier between Wales and England. However, despite there being a lot of people against Wales having their own assembly, there were also many who wanted to have their own assembly. The reasons for this were that they would have an independent country so they could control their own health system, schools and voting instead of London being in charge. In Scotland, the campaign for devolution was made by Labour, SNP and the Liberal Democrats, while the Conservatives were against it. In Wales, it was similar, except instead of SNP, Plaid Cymru argued for devolution. Scotland went to the polls on the 11th of September and Wales on the 18th of September. In the end, the result in Scotland was conclusive. 74.29% of Scots said they wanted a parliament, and 63.48% wanted it with tax-varying powers. In Wales, it was closer, with 50.30% wanting an assembly compared to 49.70% against. It was so decided that Scotland would have a parliament with tax-varying powers and Wales would have an assembly.
News just in. Queen Elizabeth II expressed growing disbelief and total shock at the carnage following of the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda's attacks against the targets in the United States where 2,977 people were killed. In London, Her Majesty the Queen personally authorised the US national anthem to be played at the changing of the guard ceremony at Buckingham Palace, and the traffic at the Mall came to a halt during the tribute. A service of remembrance was held at St Paul's Cathedral. Dana Keith, reporting from Squad Andy Murray outside Buckingham Palace.
Nearly 8 years after Princess Diana's death in a car crash was mourned the world over, Prince Charles, her widow and heir to the British throne, weds his longtime mistress, Camilla Parker Bowles. The marriage, a private civil ceremony, took place at Windsor Guildhall, 30 miles outside of London. The ceremony originally supposed to take place on April 8, but had to be rescheduled so as not to conflict with the funeral of Pope John Paul II.
After this civil ceremony, which the Queen did not attend, Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, blessed the union on behalf of the Church of England. In a separate blessing ceremony, an estimated 750 guests attended the ceremony, which was held at St George's Capital in Windsor, and was attended by both Charles's parents, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
The 2008 banking crisis was a huge deal back in the day. It began with a housing market bubble created by an overwhelming load of mortgage-backed securities that bundled high-risk loans. Reckless lending led to unprecedented numbers of loans in a default bundle together. The losses led many financial institutions to fail and require a governmental bailout. But what did the Queen have to do with this? Well, after touring the vaults of London, Queen Elizabeth asked the central bank officials where the Financial Services Authority, FSA, that was meant to regulate the banking system had not been aggressive enough.
A lot happened between 2015 and 2017.
The Queen earned the title of being the longest ever reigning British monarch, a title which was previously held by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria.
Even though this day was 7 years ago, the Queen is still reigning to this day.
In 2016, UK residents voted to leave the European Union. This split soon became commonly known as Brexit and is still being discussed and debated.
The vote took place on June 23rd, 2016 by a majority of 51.9 to 48.1%, with a turnout of just under 72%.
The UK officially left the EU at the end of 2020.
However, talks were still ongoing about trade agreements at the end of November 2020.
Speaking of Brexit, this is a reminder to get your passport checked before going on holiday this year.
On the 21st of April 2016, the Queen celebrated her 90th birthday at Windsor Castle.
Her birthday cake was created by the winner of the Great British Bake Off, Nadia Hussein.
For her birthday, the Queen unveiled a plaque on the Queen's Walkway and opened a new bandstand at Windsor Alexandra Gardens.
On May 19th, 2018, the marriage of Prince Harry to Meghan Markle took place in St George's Chapel, Windsor. The couple were known as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, one of the titles given them by Her Majesty the Queen.
November 2019, a 55-year-old man has just been found with the new virus COVID-19 in China.
It is the 30th of January 2020 and the first person has died from COVID-19. Peter Atwood, aged 84, has officially died from COVID-19.
23rd of March 2020. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that the UK will be going into lockdown and unnecessary journeys should be avoided. Masks should be worn in public spaces while staying 6 feet away from others. People are not advised to go to work unless they are an essential worker, and other public spaces such as schools should be shut down temporarily.
April 2020, the COVID-19 virus has made many households get worried and start panic buying, with household necessities like toilet paper, water and food.
May 13th, 2020, Scotland has come out of its first lockdown and shops are restocking. So far there has been 1,400,000 cases of COVID-19.
As time goes on, cases may rise and we could possibly land in another lockdown. Let's just hope for the best.
Boris Johnson has been found to have cheese and wine on the 15th of May. Number 10 has said that the recent party was a work meeting.
Mr. Markey, what is your opinion on the games being played with no crowd?
I think it's good to have football back. It's good for people to be able to be physically active again, but it's not the same playing at Old Trafford without all the fans chanting my name every weekend.
I agree.
How has your job as a professional been affected by COVID?
It's been quite difficult because of all the social distancing measures. We've not been able to train as a team, which is difficult when we're preparing for big games at the weekend, but it's good just to be able to train again, even in small groups, rather than doing stuff at home.
Have you had both your COVID-19 jobs?
Yes, I have.
Is there any reason why you have?
I think it's important just to protect yourself and other people around you.
Right, Mr. Mackey, and finally, who do you think will win the Squad Fantasy Football League?
For me, Liam, there's only one candidate. It has to be Squad Bryant.
I strongly agree.
Go.
It is the 5th of November 2022. Boris Johnson has announced a second lockdown. Boris has said he will ease the rules for Christmas.
The second national lockdown should be ending at 12:01 a.m. December 2nd, Wednesday. After this date, the government will be reintroducing local restrictions based upon data.
Margaret Keenan pictured on Wednesday became the first person in the world to be given in the world to be a significantly improved coronavirus jab as part of the vaccination program. The first person in the world to get a clinically improve COVID-19 jab as part of a mass vaccination program 12 months ago. Reflected on a wonderful year. Margaret Keenan, how now 91 from Coventry, was given a Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine at the university hospital on 8th of December 2020. She said she was happy her getting the jab had inspired others to get to do the same.
There has been 2 vaccines discovered, AstraZeneca and Pfizer.
20th of February 2022, and the Queen is experiencing cold-like symptoms, but will expect to still do light duties at Windsor Castle.
Yo. 1st of May 2022, and all COVID restrictions are lifted. You are now advised to stay home if you are unwell.
February 2022, the Queen has 20th of February 2022, the Queen is experiencing mild cold-like symptoms and will carry on. Andrew, you've knocked me off! You're filming me! I literally seen your phone. The Queen is experiencing mild cold-like symptoms and will carry on light duties in Windsor Castle.
What date?
I don't know. 20th of February 2022, the Queen has the monarch is experiencing light
May 17th, 2020. I forgot. On the 15th of May, number 10 had experienced a wine and cheese party. On the 15th of May, Boris Johnson. On the 15th.
23rd of March 2020. Boris. No! 23rd of March 2020. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that UK will be going into lockdown.